Hey everybody, it's Midwest Scotsman. Finally getting back into the groove with Inside the Covers. They take a long time to do, a lot of research, a lot of getting everything ready. But today on episode 6, we're going to be doing something really special. It's one of the most significant comics, not just the Golden Age, but of comic history. It's the first appearance of a super team ever in comics. All-Star Comics number 3 from the winter of 1940. So here we go. We start with an amazing cover by Everett Hibbard showing the heroes gathered around a table embossed with Justice Society of America. Bright yellow background makes the gathered heroes really pop. Atom, Sandman, Spectre, Flash, Hawkman, Dr. Fate, Green Lantern, and Hourman. Text indicates this issue contains brand new stories related at the first meeting at the Justice Society of America. I can't imagine the look on kids' faces. This had never been done before. Inside the front cover, we have an ad for various items such as bikes, portable radios, telescopes, etc. that you could get from selling salve door to door. And at the bottom in the indicia, we see that this is an all-American comic with MC Gaines as editor, before the full merge with DC. The opening splash is the cover done all over again, except instead of a yellow background, we have a wood-paneled wall with a fireplace, and the roll call for the Justice Society, the mightiest champions of right and justice in the world. Our story begins with Johnny Thunder upset he was not invited to the first JSA meeting. Love the comic sitting at the newsstand in the first panel. With the word "say you," he triggers his power where his wishes come true for an hour. He wishes he was at the meeting and suddenly he gets caught up with Dr. Fate and transported to the hotel for the meeting. Sandman has made everybody asleep. Flash appears and Johnny says cool down, causing Flash to start shivering, but he reverses the wish. After Green Lantern and Hawkman arrive, Johnny wishes the rest would hurry and they all appear. Flash calls him a swell head and Johnny says my head is small, but shrinks his head till he reverses it. He then says there must be no dinner and all the food disappears. Dr. Fate says the others will be upset, so Johnny wishes a full Thanksgiving feast. Flash asks what he will contribute to the meeting, and he says, I will contribute an idea. Each hero will tell the most exciting experience they have had. Flash says that's a great idea. Atom asks about Batman, Robin, and Superman, but Flash says they are protecting the world while they meet. Red Tornado also gets a mention. Johnny introduces Flash and asks him to go first. Flash says his story involves sunken treasure and helping a poor man escape cutthroats. Flash tells the tale of a Spanish galleon, Santa Joana, lost off Panama in 1567, laden with gold and jewels, but never found. While on a date with Joan Williams, he hears of a man trying to find the treasure, being hassled by roughnecks who want to steal the treasure. Joan asks him to help, but he begs off in civilian garb. But then as Flash, he goes to investigate. After getting to Panama, he begins his search for the sunken ship. He sees Roger's boat, and thinks the disturbed water is caused by a torpedo. Flash finds the ship, way off course from its last reported position. Tides must have moved it. Uh-oh, above Flash is a hungry tiger shark. Flash evades the shark, and then spins around it over and over, causing the shark to call for his mama. He then travels to the ship manned by the ruffians. He scares them into thinking he's a ghost, and then he finds all their diving equipment. He goes back to Roger's boat and tells him the location of the wreck, but his engine has been damaged by the ruffians. Flash dives underwater and spins the propeller, making the boat travel faster than ever. Cutthroats notice the movement and prepare to give chase, but Flash says he will stand watch as Roger dives on the wreck. The ruffian's ship approaches, but Flash turns the rudder and turns the ship around. Then he steals all the diving equipment. The leader vows to have the hide of the person who stole the stuff. Flash says, oh yeah? Well, I'll take your ship. Then he speeds off back to Roger's ship as he surfaced, and said the ship was full of gold. Flash gives Rogers the gear he stole from Burly Bill's crew. As the roughnecks approach, Flash goes over to their boat and takes their guns, disassembling them before their eyes. He then speeds the boat away, bringing it to the Arctic Circle in minutes. He then returns and collects all the gold for Rogers, then returns in time to New York in time to go to dinner with Mary and Joan, who again ask for help for her father. But he produces a telegram stating he had the treasure. In private, Joan scolds Flash for not telling her he was helping. This reminds Hawkman of one of his adventures. Hawkman talks about the eruption of Krakatoa. Last year, Krakatoa went into action again. At a gathering of the Science Club in New York, Shiera hears stories of balls of fire and explosions underground. As she leaves, a man jumps out to kill her. Carter socks him one. He says the killer says they must stay away from Krakatoa, or the fire ghost controlled by Mazda will kill them. Carter lets him go at Shiera's urging, but once home changes to Hawkman and goes to Krakatoa to protect Shiera when she arrives. He finds a native village near the volcano. Suddenly, there's a beam of blinding light. Hawkman swoops down to see what caused the explosion. He sees the fire ghosts are men encased in living flames. He drops down into the crater, but the heat drives him back. Meanwhile, Shiera arrives and begins to unpack. Hawkman arrives that night and tells her they need asbestos clothing to go further. It's a little cancer among friends. The next day, clad in asbestos suits, Hawkman and Shiera enter the crater. Hawkman overpowers a guard and discovers their skin is coated with a strange substance made of fire itself. More guards arrive. Hawkman tries to fight them off, but is overpowered and they are taken prisoner. They are brought before the ruler, Mazda, who in true villain fashion shows them how he plans to destroy the outer world with steam from the volcano. Hawkman and Shiera are thrown off the edge into the lava below. But Hawkman snaps the rope holding his wings, and just above the lava in certain death, he caught Shiera and flew to safety, smashing the force generator on the way out. Dropping Shiera to safety, Hawkman goes after Mazda. During the battle, Hawkman tosses Mazda over the cliff into the lava below, ending the threat of Krakatoa. He grabs Shiera and races from the volcano's crater. As soon as they escape, the volcano erupts. A man was caught in this explosion. It was the man who tried to knife Shiera. He explains that Mazda was a scientist who sought to rule the world after inventing a special suit like asbestos. He then passes away from his injuries. Hawkman leaves Shiera at the hotel and leaves, although he regrets never finding out what the suits were made of. Next story up is the Spectre. A night watchman does his rounds at midnight with a full moon, when he is suddenly startled and then strangled. The coroner notes the strength needed was superhuman. Jim Corrigan thinks this is only the beginning, and he's right as multiple more murders occur. But then after the moon is no longer full, the murders stop until the next full moon. Jim Corrigan's chief tells him the murders must stop. That night Jim is walking near the central building when a statue on the building comes to life and climbs down, grabbing Jim and hurling him at a building to smash him into a pulp. Jim regains his senses quickly enough to dematerialize, and when he passes out of the other side of the building, it is as the Spectre. He chases down the bloodthirsty statue before he can strike again, and learns it is named the Mighty. States he comes from the dark side of the moon, and comes to Earth when he needs to satiate his desire for death. He challenges Spectre that whoever captures the red moonstone of Yizgartel will own Earth, and the other must leave forever. They hurtle through space, Spectre traveling through the Eld dimension as a shortcut, but contacts a henchman on Yizgartel to meet the Spectre. Spectre arrives on Yizgartel and sees the red moonstone, but the henchman dragon mimics the cry of a child, causing the Spectre to investigate. The Spectre attacks the dragon and eventually slays it, but while he's fighting, captures the red moonstone. Spectre gives chase and causes to drop the moonstone by heating it up. He grabs the moonstone and gets to Earth before but will not honor the bargain. He and Spectre have a mighty battle with the Spectre victorious. Spectre forces the statue back into place and rips Oom's spirit from the statue. Spectre traps the spirit of Oom in the Moonstone and hurls it into space. His chief says the case will forever remain unsolved. This reminds our man of a case. His boss summons him into his office to ask him to take his daughter to the costume ball at the Durant estate to see the diamond collection. He decides to go as our man, his boss not realizing he's the real our man. Our man goes to the ball and discovers many of the guests came dressed as our man. One of them says, "The boss said no women, so ditch the dame." Suspecting they are criminals, our man takes his Miraclo, granting him powers for an hour. He meets the owner of the diamonds, who makes him suspicious, and decides that the henchmen are going to steal the diamonds to blame on our man. Later at the gala, all the our men pull guns and steal the diamonds after shooting the police. Our man attacks them, but is struck over the head with a pistol, knocking him out. When he comes to, the owner has a gun pulled on him, blaming him for the theft. Our man must prove his innocence, so he kicks the gun out of his hand and escapes. He gets into the owner's office and begins finding some suspicious papers. He grabs what he can as the police come after him. Our man subdues the police and uses one of the uniforms as a disguise to escape the building. He follows the criminals to an island where they have the jewels, but he's discovered and captured. But he has an idea to try an old trick. He fakes the sounds of a dying man, and one of them comes to investigate. He overpowers them. He then takes the criminals by surprise and captures them all, including the owner of the jewels who had faked the crime to pay debts. The police say the real our man would be proud. Little did they know it was the real our man. Up next is Sandman. Before Sandman begins, the Red Tornado shows up, having climbed up the fire escape. They try to convince the Red Tornado to take off her cape and stay, but she rushes out. They wonder why she was in such a hurry, but Flash finds that she caught her costume on the window and it ripped off her pants. Next is an awesome splash panel ad showing 9 issues of Golden Age goodness. How awesome it must have been to have them all on the newsstand together. Next up, Sandman talks about how he has no superpowers, just his gas gun and a hatred of crime. While traveling as Wesley Dodds with Diane Belmont, they come across a 20-foot tall man who staggers towards them and dies. In his pocket, Wesley finds a hypodermic needle. He calls the police and also starts his own search for clues. Wesley hears of another case from a newsboy. Diane drives him to Midtown Hospital as he changes into the Sandman. He rushes in and gasses a hospital administrator. He finds information on a Dr. Faversham who was banished for experiments on the pituitary gland. Just then, police burst in. Sandman barrels into the police and using his gas gun makes his escape to the waiting car with Diane. He goes back to the body of the man and finds dirt that leads him to West Shore Road. As they travel down West Shore Road, Diane screams. A giant rat approaches them, but suddenly runs away, chased by a giant cat. After a moment, they both fall dead. Sandman gives a gun to Diane and tells her to wait. As he approaches a secluded house, shots ring out. He's been discovered. Sandman sneaks into the basement where he discovers a man who tells him Faversham is insuring people, then using his experiments on them, and when they die, collecting the insurance. Their bodies grow, but then the bones shrink again, causing the corpses to become flesh sacks. Just then, Dr. Faversham bursts in shooting, somehow missing the Sandman. Sandman is able to overpower Faversham and subdue him. He calls the police and rushes out to the waiting car with Diane. He explains everything as they drive off. Sandman says he still gets nightmares from that case. Up next is Dr. Fate. Dr. Fate explains he is not human and was created to fight sorcery. One of his strangest adventures was due to a woman's curiosity. A woman looks at an antique shop in the city. She asks the owner for a lamp. While the owner gets the lamp, a mysterious woman appears and hands her an ancient box said to bring its owner a fortune. The owner says he's never seen the box before, but she takes it instead of the lamp. She comes home and opens the box, which causes a mist that makes her sleep. In her dreams, an Egyptian priestess says the world is in danger, and she must find Dr. Fate. She goes to Dr. Fate's tower and warns him of danger on the coastal moors. They travel to the moors and are immediately attacked by dead phantoms. Fighting off the phantoms, Dr. Fate grabs Inza and soars into the sky with her. The dead phantoms disappear. They travel to Inza's apartment where Dr. Fate says she is a victim of a sorcerer who's trying to kill Dr. Fate, as he's the only one who can stop him. Inza suddenly screams, saying the Egyptian sorceress is trying to kill her. Dr. Fate puts Inza into a deep sleep to protect her, and then travels to the antique shop to look for clues. There he finds an entity from the seabeds of the Nile. His powers are useless until he uses his mind to disperse it. He takes to the sky and sees a radiance from black magic being performed. Entering a house full of bone charms and talismans, Dr. Fate finds the sorcerer hiding behind a force screen. He sends unicorns to attack Dr. Fate, but he knows they can't harm him. But then the sorcerer summons the 3 witches of Endor, and invokes Set, Baal, and Malak. What about Wicked? Dr. Fate slips, and the sorcerer prepares to kill him. Dr. Fate grabs him and pitches him across the room, breaking his neck. As he is dying, he tells Dr. Fate he hoped to defeat him to become invincible. Dr. Fate incinerates him so he cannot reincarnate. He returns to Inza, telling her she is safe and explaining what happened. Dr. Fate tells Johnny it's his turn. Johnny says he's modest, but the editors have written a story about what happened to him. Next, we have a Johnny Thunder text story. Johnny is trying to impress a girl, Daisy Darling. He comes upon 2 men with a mannequin and he wants to practice nice things to say, so he tries to buy it. They rebuff him and attack him. Johnny calls them windbags and his power turns them into balloons. He finds the mannequin had a girl trapped inside, who was an heiress that was kidnapped. Her father offers Johnny a job as her bodyguard and he accepts. Johnny and the girl go to the theater, where they see Daisy Darling and her boyfriend Edgar Eggwell. After the show, Johnny and the girl are kidnapped by gunmen and taken to the Hotel Chase. The boss comes in, and it is Edgar. Johnny uses his powers to force the men to throw away their guns and turns Edgar into a snake. Johnny chases the men downstairs, but the police have them. As they return upstairs, they find the heiress on the floor with a black eye, and Daisy standing over her saying, "Don't mess with my boyfriend." Daisy says, "Johnny, you don't have much brains, but I like you better than Edgar anyway," indicating she wants him for her boyfriend. We end with a 3rd-page splash about the next quarterly, which I expect should be all Flash, but it doesn't say. It says an announcement it's coming soon. Next is a full-page ad for the All-American Flying Club from President Hop Harrigan. For 10 cents, you get a membership card, a winged emblem, and the opportunity to enter contests. Not a bad deal for a dime. Next up is the Adam story. He explains he's Al Pratt, a sophomore at Calvin College. He explains he often is made fun of for his small size, people not knowing he is the Atom. While on a geology expedition, he sees a small plane land. As he gets closer, he sees a bunch of thugs preparing to rob gold from an armored car. But the Atom will also be there. One of the thugs lays in the street to stop the truck. The men capture the truck and steal the uniforms from the men. The Atom decides to tag along to see what's happening, but he missed his footing leaping onto the truck and falls, knocking himself unconscious. While he's unconscious, the crooks drive the truck to a U.S. gold repository, driving right through the gates. Once inside, they tie up the men and load the truck even more full of gold before driving right out the front gate by the unsuspecting guards. While the Atom was out cold, the girl he likes, Mary James, comes across him thinking he's dead. She checks and finds he is alive and attempts to take off his mask. The Atom wakes up just in time. She sees his alter ego's pick and he says he took it from some kid who was sleeping. As they talk about his alter ego, he sees something and tells her to hide behind some trees. He sees the truck approaching and asks her to run down to the nearest house and call the police. He climbs into a tree and this time successfully drops into the truck. He leaps in the back and starts walloping on the thugs. The drivers hear a commotion but thinks it's just a bumpy ride as they rush to the plane to escape. As the truck pulls up to the plane, the boss is waiting. As they start to open the back of the truck, the Atom leaps out and makes short work of him. He leaves his card and then disappears as the police arrive. The police chief says the Atom just saved the government $20 million. Johnny Thunder is about to announce the next story when they're interrupted. A messenger arrives with a telegram for the Justice Society. Flash takes the message and says it's from the FBI chief asking for a representative from the Justice Society for a mission vital to the welfare of the country. He decided Flash should go as he can get there and back in no time. While they wait for the Flash, Green Lantern will tell his tale. Green Lantern explains his powers and begins his story. A series of crimes begins and the police seem helpless. Commissioner Mason is being blamed and a man named Lacey starts to stir up the public to elect him as commissioner. That night, newspaper editors receive a call to head to Commissioner Mason's house as something is going to happen. As the reporters arrive, the house is surrounded by police. They have heard Mason will collect a bribe, and he's caught in the act. Mason says he's never taken a bribe and he was framed. The man who gave him the money has no idea who gave him the money and just did what he was told. People demand Mason be replaced, and he's replaced with Lacey. All of a sudden, the crimes stop, but gambling dens increase. Alan Scott hears of the story and is suspicious and decides to investigate. Reciting the Green Lantern Oath, he travels to town and meets with a reporter, Paul Pryor. He convinces Paul to write a column saying he'll disclose the names of those who framed Mason. The underworld boss sees the column and sends his henchmen to stop Paul. The henchmen arrive at Paul's to kill him, but the Green Lantern attacks them and subdues them. He asks them who the boss is, but they refuse to tell. He then forces them to look deep into his power ring. Hypnotizing them with the ring, they spill the beans on the boss's name and location. Paul prepares for his show as Green Lantern heads to the boss's house, but he's discovered and hit on the head with a wooden mallet. Knocking him out as wood is his weakness. He awakens to find the boss, the new Commissioner Lacey. Green Lantern tells him Paul's about to go on a show and expose him. Lacey heads to stop him, leaving Green Lantern with his henchmen. Lantern turns his ring on his bonds, releasing them. He strikes the thug in the jaw with all his strength. The thug is knocked unconscious as GL takes off for the studio. He transmutes through the wall just as Lacey is attempting to arrest Paul for withholding info from the police. GL uses his ring on Lacey and forces him to tell the truth about framing Mason. Lacey pulls a gun as the police approach, but Lantern uses his ring to jam the gun. He's taken into custody and Paul explains how it all happened. GL explains that everything went just as planned as he ends his story. Just then, Flash arrives. He says the FBI director is a great guy, and he wants to meet all the members of the Justice Society. They plan to travel down on Tuesday night, as everyone is free then. They all have a hunch something big is about to break. Flash says as he's leaving, make sure you read the announcement from our editors on the next page. The next page is a full-page announcement from the editors, thanking the fans for making All-Star Comics 1 and 2 complete sellouts. As they know All-Star 3 will also sell out, they are converting the comic to a bi-monthly schedule instead of quarterly. Then it teases the next issue of All-Star, where the team works hand-in-hand for the first time with the FBI chief in Washington. Next is a full-page ad for model planes on the inside back cover, including dive bombers that really drop bombs. You can also buy motors for them. It's interesting that one of them's a Stuka. I mean, it was right before World War II. Well, it was after World War II started, but it wasn't very negative about it. But planes look kind of cool. And then the back cover is an ad with prizes you can win by selling Christmas cards, including Superman's crypto ray gun. How exciting. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button and sub me up. The next episode of Creator Spotlight should be ready shortly. Stay tuned for that, as well as the next episode of Inside the Covers, which which will spotlight another Golden Age comic. If there are any creators you would like to see spotlighted, or an issue you'd like to see on Inside the Covers, please let me know in the comments below. Make sure you tune in for Blasting and Stashing on Friday nights for the best reviews of new books in the community. Until next time, this is Midwest Scotsman, coming at you from the funny pages.